But think about what's happening here. 75% of the people in this room right now believe that the economic recovery is more than 2 years away. And do you know what's a very important lesson to learn? A very important lesson to learn is this. A very important lesson to learn is that history has taught us something about recessions. You know, GE did a study, the head of innovation at GE did a study, and he looked at what happened in previous recessions. He took a look at what happened with the recession that came about with the oil shock of the 1970s. He looked at the economic downturn of the 1980s. He looked at the recession of the early 1990s. He looked at the downturn that came with the dot-com bust. And he looked at what happened to companies during those period of time. He found that 60% of the companies barely survived, getting through that economic turmoil. The 30% of them died, 30% didn't make it. 10% became breakthrough performers. And that is because of the decisions that they made to innovate at the height of the recession. I want you to ask yourself a question. Are you guilty right now of a sin that I have called aggressive indecision? Think about what happens when we have an economic downturn. Think about what happens when we're in a period of uncertainty. We stop making decisions. We stop making decisions. We're not going to make that capital investment. We're not going to pursue that new ERP system. We're not going to think of investing in this new type of facility, which we've been talking about for years, because we're not certain when we're going to see an economic recovery. What happens in a downturn is we become indecisive. And what happens during a prolonged downturn is we become aggressively indecisive. And yet history has taught us that organizations that become breakthrough performers are those who make the implicit choice to innovate right now at the period of greatest uncertainty. Now is the time to begin committing to the things that you need to do to get forward into the future. And you've got to do that in a very challenging environment.